Are you the proud new owner of a Simrad Go series Fishfinder chart plotter? Are you considering purchasing one of these units? Well, if you are, stay tuned. I'm Glenn from Aqua Lifestyle, and in this video we're going to go over the setup of the Fishfinder on this incredible machine and help you catch more fish. Stay tuned. The original plan for this video was to cover all three Fishfinder components, setting up all three components within the Simrad Go series. That would be the Echo, the side scan, and the down scan. While making the video, I realized that this would take way too long and make a very long video. So what I'm going to do is break it up into three separate videos. This one I'm going to cover setting up the Echo portion. As you can see from the manual, there are a lot of things to cover within that to set it up properly and also to understand everything that you're looking at. So this video is going to be just covering the Echo portion, and we'll have a couple of shorter videos following with the side scan and the down scan. So let's get started. So the first screen that comes up is the disclaimer screen. This is basically telling you not to rely on this as your sole means of navigation. Once you read through it and you understand it, just hit the accept button, and it's going to ask you, do you want to configure this device for your typical use now? Yes, you're going to want to do that. So we'll select that. At this point you can select your units of measure, miles per hour, knots, nautical miles, feet, or meters in degrees Celsius or Fahrenheit. We're here in the United States, so we use miles, feet, and Fahrenheit. Now, select transducer. It may automatically detect the transducer that's in the box or not, and this is kind of important. If it doesn't, you need to select the right transducer, otherwise it's not going to give you good readings. This one came with a total scan medium high, so we'll select that one. Just select finish. Now this one, you can add an app to your phone, and it helps with getting customer support. You get updates for charts, and you can keep up with the latest updates and do various things online. So if you want to do that, you can press the get started and just follow through. Today we're not going to get into that on this video, so we're going to skip that. Now the first screen we want to come to, we're going to go hit that button over here. That will take us to our home screen. Now initially you're going to want to go into your settings, which is up here in the corner, so we'll press that button. And Echo is the one we want to look at. On this one you can view your sonar log, so if you have a log of Echo files, if you saved any, it will bring those up and you can review them at that point. Structure depth offset. Now you can offset your transducer, your keel offset, so if the transducer is mounted a foot or two, or your keel is a foot or two higher or lower than, or the lowest point on your boat is a foot or two or whatever higher or lower than the transducer, you can set that at that point and make that adjustment, and then it's going to read from that point, not necessarily from where the transducer is, but the lowest point on your boat. Installation. And we'll kick this in and bring up what is Echo installation. Search depth, unlimited. We want to set it unlimited. You can change that if you want and have a maximum, but we'll leave that at unlimited. Depth offset, again, that's going to be your keel offset or your depth offset. If you want to increase it plus or minus, you can do it here. Water speed calibration. Percentage, you want it 100%. Again, you can adjust up or down if you want to. Water speed averaging, 1 second. Now it's taking your speed through the water, and it's going to take the average every second, adjust it, and make it an average speed. So it's the most sensitive and most accurate. Water temperature, no temperature sources. If there was the transducer plugged in here, it would give that information. Transducer type is unknown. We're going to select a transducer. Let's select total scan medium high. And we're going to hit the save button and save that information. So we'll go back here and let's start. Those are your basic settings. We're going to pull up. Let's start with echo, then we'll do side scan and down scan. Echo is going to be your basic, your traditional, or what they call broadband sonar image. So it's going to show you bottom structure, fish, and your depth. On your screen here, basically you have your depth in the upper left-hand corner, temperature, and the frequency that the transducer is running. You also have time of day up here, but you've got your depth up in the top bar here, and your data bar here, which you can remove if you want to, but this is going to show on each of the screens, also has your depth. Now, if you notice that when I tapped that, the orange barrier came around that, so because that's highlighted, if I were to hit this, this is my menu button up here in the upper right-hand corner. If I hit that, we can change the bar for fishing, cruise, anchor, fuel, general. So if we weren't fishing, if we wanted to have a general bar, and I could edit it at that point, see how each one is highlighting now, you can customize it to show each of the windows that you want. We don't want to do that right now, so let's just, but you see how the data changed on the bar now. If I go back to fishing, let's go back, we'll go to R1, let's put it back to fishing. We can edit that if we want. Now if I go back and I tap the screen, you notice how the barrier on the outside, the border here, is orange. So if I were to hit the menu button again, it's going to give me the menu options for the sounder screen itself. So let's go through these. First up is range. Now we've got it set to auto, and that's usually a good way to keep it until you start playing with it and getting very familiar. I would recommend keeping it in auto. But if you select that, it's auto to 100 feet right now, and it'll auto range. If we get into deeper water, that will change. See it change. We got a little bit shallower, so to keep it all in scale, it's changing as we're moving into shallower water here. If you set it to a particular depth, let's say we keep it at 100 feet, it would keep it locked in. If you know you're going to be around that and you don't like the screen shifting around as much as it was there when it was auto scaling, you can set it to a depth that you know you're going to drop somewhere in the middle of, and the screen won't keep shifting and changing. That way you can see your history a little bit easier without it swapping out and changing as the depth changes. Or you can just keep it in auto mode like it was, and it will scale automatically. Now a couple things. You notice here you've got your scale on the side here from 0 to 100 feet. You also have a temperature scale here, because this little red line up at the top here, this is giving you your temperature. You got surface temperature over here, and this is giving you a representation of the temperature. If you were to hit a thermal at some point, that line would either drop or increase. So your range on your temperature here is 65 to 50, and again, that's doing that automatically. So let's go back. Next is your frequency. The frequency, this is showing you the frequency that the transducer is operating in. And there's a few things you want to keep in mind with frequency. Higher frequency works better in shallower water. So the higher the frequency, the better the resolution is going to be in shallow water. As you get into deeper water, a lower frequency is going to work better. So shallow water, the 200 is working very well. 83 would be better for mid-range depths. Shallow water, I'm saying anything realistically 100 feet or under. That's 30 meters or so or under. The 83 kilohertz is good from, I would say, 80 feet to maybe 150 feet. And beyond that, I would recommend using the 50 kilohertz if you're 200 feet or deeper. Now you've got high chirp, medium chirp, and low chirp. High chirp, again, high frequency. That's good for running in shallow water. Medium chirp, good mid-range. Low chirp, good for deeper water. So we're going to keep it at high chirp for now. Basically, there's a lot of science and technology behind it, but my simplest explanation for it is chirp is going to help you define targets a little bit better than a regular sounder would. What it's going to do when you have fish or structure, it's going to give you a little better resolution. If you have a school of fish, let's say in the middle here, it's going to identify the individual fish in that school a little bit better. If you have fish just off the surface, it's going to identify them as fish just off the surface rather than just part of the structure or part of the bottom. Just a little higher definition imagery, being able to separate it when they're close together. That's basically what chirp does. All right, we're going to hit back here. So we've got our frequency at high chirp. Our gain, again, we've got it in auto mode right now. It's checked down here. We can take that off auto, and we can use our slider and fine-tune our gain. Now you see as I turn the gain up, we get more and more noise on the screen, and as I back it down, you lose some sensitivity, but it takes that noise away. You want to find a happy medium. Generally, in shallow water, 100 feet, 30 meters or less, the auto is going to do a very good job if the water isn't very, very dirty or a lot of silt. If it is, you may need to play with your gain a little bit because you just get too much noise within the water here. You can see we've got some specks. This is really ideally where we want to keep it. You got specks on the screen here throughout, but you're still identifying your fish. If I were to turn that gain up a little bit, if I take it from here and I turn it up, you get a lot more noise. And if I were to turn it down, you see how you start losing some of those fish arches that you see on the screen here? So we want to have it where we've got just a little bit of that noise, but we're able to really pick up the fish. So right about there would be ideal. Now each of these arches are fish. And the red feedback, basically what's happening is your transducer is sending a sound signal out, and it's bouncing off the bottom and it's coming back up. Well, as that sound signal travels through the water column, if it hits a fish, the densest part of the fish generally is the swim bladder. So these feedbacks here that you're seeing, these arcs, are the sound bouncing off that dense part of the fish and going back up to the transducer and being processed by the machine. So each of those arcs is a fish. If it's got a red feedback, it's a nice solid feedback, and the bigger the arch, obviously the bigger the fish. So you want to have these arches here. Now you can, and I'll show you in a minute how to change this if you want to have fish symbols rather than the arches. You can do that. You can have fish symbols and you can have the depth next to it. A lot of pros don't use that. Most pros are going to keep it like this where it's got the arches just because it's a more accurate representation of what you're looking at generally than those fish symbols are. All right, so if we go back, the next option is your color. Now your color, again, keep it in auto mode, but you can change your coloration, change the sensitivity. Color, again, generally, if you leave it in the auto mode, it's going to give you your best representation most of the time. But that gives you the ability to play with that. Now, if we go down to the next, this is going to take us into some advanced features. The first one is noise rejection. Noise rejection, if you're seeing lines on the screen, if lines are coming up, if you have columns of speckles, if you get odd blocks on the screen, or just a lot of noise across the screen, a lot of pixels, you may be getting noise interference from something on board, some other piece of electronics, something like that. So right now we've got it set to low, and ideally you want to keep it at low because, again, the lower it is, the more sensitive the machine is to the readings that it's taking from the transducer. But you can change it. You can put it on medium and high if you are seeing feedback of some kind coming on the screen. Scroll speed. Now scroll speed, this is the amount of speed. If I increase it, you see how fast it's running here and see how these lines are drawing out, because what's happening is it's sending that sound signal down, bouncing back up. If it's not moving very quickly, you're going to see a line there. If it's something that moves through the beam very quickly, it'll just be a small speck. So these lines are fish or something that's staying within that beam within that amount of time that it's bouncing back and forth multiple times. You want to keep it, generally speaking, you want to keep it at a normal rate. It'll default to normal, but you want to bring it down to where you're not just seeing straight lines like that if you're moving. Now, if you're sitting still and a fish is sitting in that beam and it's not moving, it's going to show as a straight line rather than an arc. But if you're moving slowly or drifting and you're moving across that fish, then it's going to indicate as an arch. So we'll go back here. Scroll speed, we want it set to normal usually. That's your best bet. So we'll keep that at normal for now. Again, every situation is different, and you can play with these to maximize your readings and get the best readings possible. Generally speaking, normal is going to work best for you. So we hit back here. Now, ping speed, I would keep that at max. What that's doing is it's having the amount of sound signal that's going down, bouncing off the bottom and bouncing off fish and coming back up at the maximum rate possible. So it's clicking away, clicking away, clicking away, sending that signal back and forth as quickly as possible. Generally speaking, you're going to want to keep that at maximum. Underneath here, log sonar. You can actually log if you're going over an interesting area, you want to record it. You can actually record the sonar. So you can create the file name, format, and you change all of these just by tapping on them. And you can hit record at that point and it'll start. If you have a lot of files, you're going to want to record those to the memory card in the back, and then you can pull them up on your computer. You can do various things. You can pull them off with your app, do different functions with that recorded sonar. Now, some of these recordings too, you can actually send them to the chart manufacturer, the charts that you're using, either CMAP or Navionics. They each have their own crowdsourced charting capability, and what they do is they take the readings and the GPS positions from your recordings. They take all that data, crunch it together, and create really highly detailed crowdsourced cartography. So that's another option that's possible with these machines. Okay, so that's our log sonar. We're going to hit back, and down at the bottom here we covered the advanced options. Now we'll hit more options, and it gives us some different ones here. Split, very quickly and easily splits your screen. You can have a zoom split or a bottom lock, so it's a matter of your preference. We'll go back and do no split for the time being, keep the screen the largest possible. Palette, you can change your palettes to different colorations. Again, just a matter of picking the one that you like the best. We'll keep it at the default for now. Temperature graph, now that's checked. I mentioned that before. That's your temperature line at the top here. Right now we're at a steady 58.4, so it's a straight line going across. If I uncheck that, that line goes away. Okay, so we'll keep that checked. We'll go to depth line. Depth line, what that does is it's going to show, see the black line in here? That's showing the depth recording. So every time that number changes or that flickers there, that's putting a dot on this line, creating this line here. So it's showing you where the actual depth is. We will uncheck that. A-scope is a handy feature. I like having this. This shows you what's in your beam real time while you're underway. Well, this is kind of a historical representation of what your beam has traveled over or passed through your beam. This is showing you real time what's happening in the beam as it's happening. So the bottom here, this is your bottom, this is the surface, and these are things that it's reading, like that red that just showed there. That was a fish that was in my beam real time at the time it was showing it. This is a historical representation of it here. It's already passed through the beam and it's beyond it, but here it's showing real time. So this is really handy to have, especially if you're running underway. Kind of like having that on there. We'll turn that off for now. Zoom bars, what zoom bars do is if we zoom in here, if I zoom into the bottom, zoom bar will pop up, and I can actually adjust by sliding up and down the zoom area that I want to look at. Downscan overlay. Now this pulls up, when you select that, pulls up a submenu. You can turn it on. The high definition imagery from downscan, it's going to take that and overlay it on our regular broadband or chirp bottom picture. Very handy for finding structure, that kind of thing. Although with Simrad and Lowrance, they have fish reveal in the downscan mode, and I think most people are going to use that over this. So I won't get too in depth with that on this one, but you have all your adjustments just like you do for your regular chart, for your regular bottom chart in these menu options. Same features, just to fine-tune this one. We won't go over that too much, but you do have that possibility. Now if you look down here, you've got a highlighted arrow. It's highlighted, indicating that there's things beyond. Downscan was showing as our last option. There are options beneath it. When I scroll down, you can see the arrow is now highlighted, showing that there's stuff up above that. So underneath downscan overlay, we have a pause, which is a pause feature. Pauses the screen and the transducer, so that's on or off. Fish ID, we mentioned this earlier. Fish ID will give you either symbols, depths, or both for fish. Let's go back here. So symbols, it'll give you fish symbols instead of just arches. If it finds a fish, there you go, it's showing one there. You can do depths, so it'll give you the depth of whatever it's marking, or it'll do both, the fish symbol and the depth. The fish symbols vary in size depending on the size of the return that comes back to the transducer. Here you got fish ID beeps, and that will make the machine, if you listen closely, you'll hear it beep as fish enter the beam. It'll beep like that and let you know that you got fish marking in the transducer at the time that they enter the transducer. I turn it off because after a while all that beeping drives me nuts. I prefer not to have that on, but again, matter of personal preference. And your last option is your minute marker, which you can turn on and off. So that covers all your menu functions within the sonar here. Now, if I click the screen, the menu will go away. Now, a quick tip, if I see something of interest in here that I'd like to look at, let's say this point right here looks like there's a bunch of fish right off the surface. I can put my crosshairs on it and I can move it around and it'll actually give me all kinds of information to that point. It freezes the screen. We can see where it is in relation to our history up at the top here. Gives us our depth and our position. Now, if I want to save this point as an interesting spot that I want to come back to fish, I can pull up my menu, I hit new waypoint, and it'll create a new waypoint at the cursor. I can name it at this point or I can just save it. If I hit save, it marks it and that's a saved waypoint. If I want to clear my cursor, and it marks it, you can see there. If I want to clear my cursor now and I want to go back and see that, you can actually pull the screen back. There it is in our history. You can see there. And as I scroll back, it's showing my history going back quite a ways from where we started. It's showing the whole history of the bottom. So that was interesting. Let me look at that. Yep, there it is. That's a point I want to go back and fish. Just a quick tip and interesting thing that you can do with this. If we clear the cursor, it takes us back to real time. So there you go. I hope now you have a better understanding of the Simrad Echo portion of the Fishfinder on the Go series. The next two videos in this series will cover the side scan and down scan, so don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification button. That way you'll know as soon as they're available to watch. And if you have any questions, post them in the comments and we'll do our best to answer them. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you back here soon.